M&A TV is pleased to be joined now by Kathryn Coleman, who is a partner at Hughes Hubbard & Reed. Katie, thank you so much for being here on M&A TV.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your firm and the kind of deals you do.
Well, my firm is a full-service New York law firm of the kind that I'm sure you speak to partners of all the time. We have, uniquely, we have served as debtors counsel in the Lehman and MF Global bankruptcy cases, the SIPA liquidations, and so we have the experiences of those massive cases and dealing with those massive claims. I am more on the company side in terms of, I've represented companies over the years in lots and lots of industries. I would say that restructuring is industry specific as we go through economic cycles, but the fundamentals change in a way that is almost independent of industry. And so one of the great strengths of my firm, I think, is that we've got industry expertise not only in restructuring but all over the firm that we can bring in when we're representing companies who are going through restructuring, because understanding the business is something that is absolutely critical in what we do. And
clearly that is something that you do. You've been in the business, what, 30 years?
A long time, yes.
Okay, so talk to us about being a delicate diplomat, if you will. When you're dealing with companies where you have the management who is, seeing a situation one way, but then there's what's right for the company. How do you walk that line? How do you proceed?
Well, sometimes you have to associate in different counsel, because the client is obviously the company, but the company can only act through individuals and through people. So the people that you're sitting in the conference room with for 16 hours a day, figuring out what are we going to do, how are we going to deal with this situation with this creditor, how do we deal with this executory contract. Those are the people that you're dealing with, but those people themselves are not the company, and they have their own interests. They've got their own employment contracts. They've got their own severance payments that they're worried about. And one thing that you really have to be sensitive to as you're advising, because these things never start. A company never calls you and says, "Katie, I've got to file bankruptcy. Come help." "Katie, we're in trouble. What can we do?" And you're working through potential solutions. And sometimes Chapter 11 is the best way to go because of some things I'll talk about in a minute in terms of the dynamics and the protections that are available to the debtor in a bankruptcy. Sometimes it is the right thing to do, but it is for the company, but it's also potentially devastating for the management. And so in a situation like that, where I see that coming, I do try to associate in separate counsel for the management so that I can do my job and tell them, look, I'm advising you in your capacity as the person who needs to recommend to the board what we should do, versus the guy who's trying to protect his retirement fund, or is worried about whether he's going to get a severance payment, or is worried about whether he's going to be kept on if the company files. Because as compelling as those personal concerns are, they can't stand in the way of what's really right for the company.
With Chapter 11 filings going down, over the past few years, when is Chapter 11 really the right thing to do for companies?
Well, sometimes it's when old equity does want to stay in, but being at the bottom of the stack on an absolute priority basis, they've got to find a way to give themselves some leverage against the creditors, and the only way to do that is to put the company in and provide the financing in bankruptcy. One of the worst things that old equity can do, but it happens all the time, is put in new money, and it really looks like good money going after bad, because if you put in new money either as an equity basis or on a subordinated credit basis, then the company, you haven't really done anything other than really provide more money that eventually could go to the other creditors. The only way to come in ahead of other creditors is to do it as a debtor in possession financing in bankruptcy, and that is, it's a very smart play, but boy, it's a tough choice to make. But that is where I think bankruptcy really does offer the second chance that it's supposed to. If you don't have that, and you have existing creditors being the ones providing that DIP financing, then you see a real shift of power and a real shift of control of the case. Companies are supposed to, the way the code is supposed to work is companies file Chapter 11, formulate a plan of reorganization that comports with the absolute priority rule, and then execute, and they come out, and old equity still retains. I mean, they may have to pay new money for it, but they would still retain control. the way the code has been used very cleverly by creditors for the past 10 years has been to really mark everything to market, force a sale, and then the creditors are the ones who are providing the financing and saying what the plan can say in advance, really from the outset of the case. And that's not the way it's supposed to work, but that's what's been happening.
Shift of power.
Exactly.
Katie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for
MATV.
having me. I
Great to
really
see you.
enjoyed it.